is Camille Simone Thomas, she, her pronouns. I am an actor, a playwright, a poet, a screenwriter. I've produced some things, and I am being interviewed for the social enterprise of RDXL House.
Thank you so much for coming on to our show with us today. I'd love for you to introduce yourself, tell them your name, tell them describe yourself, and don't limit yourself. Especially like so many people that come on are multi-hyphenates and they'll be like, I'm an artist. Bitch, come on. You know, like let us know what are all the things.
I have a thing. I think it's going to be in part of my new artist statement, so I'll read that to you.
I love that.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Camille Simone Thomas. I'm from Detroit, she, her pronouns, land of the Anishinaabe originally.
Awesome.
I'll read it to you. I'm a playwright, I'm a poet, I've produced some things, I'm a screenwriter. I'll read you, this is the artsy version of what I do. But it is these are all the things that inspire my work.
Right.
So I said, as an artist today, in this season, I am a memory keeper, a historian of both personal and cultural histories, a healer. I investigate my own wounds in the hopes that I can understand the injury and then show others how to understand and heal their own injuries. I am the prefix act, which comes from the Latin roots and means to do or move. This is most frequently, but not always, embodied as an artist and as an actor. I strive to contribute my talent and time to stories that move us towards our most radical future. I'm a daughter of God, of James and Celia, of Jamaica and Detroit. I'm a sister, a friend, and just one more drop in the river of justice that is rushing towards collective liberation.
Period.
New artist statement. Y'all heard it here first.
Right.
Yes.
And the fact that you've been having an artist statement, like a mission statement, shows that you so seriously take the work that you do. And it seems like you have a goal in mind. So I'd love to ask, what is your hopeful goal? Say you have a little that's a Raven moment, you know?
And you're future.
Right, into the future. 30 years in the future,
yeah.
What would you hope that your work is working towards to do and working towards to heal? You said healing, you said keeping memory. What do you hope you keep memory of? Share to us, where are you hoping to go?
I definitely want to have my work be in high school and college curriculums. I think we're seeing the erasure of stories of people of color, of queer people. We're seeing the erasure of our histories. Just intentional erasure. It's so evil to try to take away someone's history. So I like to write stories of history, both real and imagined. Obviously, I am Black. I don't know my 5-10 times great-grandparents, but I carry their DNA inside of me, so I like to investigate that lineage and write through a lot of research and dramaturgical research and also spiritual research of who are these people, what their stories are, what was their life like. And that's where I draw a lot of my strength from. So I would like to give that to people so they can learn how to investigate their own histories and find out who they are and how we can all work together to achieve a more free, radical liberation society.
Right. So I have one statement and then I have a question. My first statement is I always love hearing Black people talking about how their lineage is close to their art. Because at least my experience being ADOS, you know, and I just want to acknowledge, I don't love I think that we need to have more expansive verbiage of how we speak about the Black community. Because even just saying ADOS, I would love to be able to say United States descendant ADOS, you know what I mean? But there's no thing of that. If I say African American, I do think that African American fits the best right now.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the whole thing of what is Black.
Yeah.
How you define things and how a lot of Black people have a lot of different experiences and have a lot of different ethnic, makeup. Even you were talking about how you descend from Jamaica. I literally all of my ethnic makeup is United States, African American. But because of that, also because of enslavement, I did not know anything past the people that I knew.
Yes.
And, I always would tell people there's a way in which racialized Black people also talk to each other and talk about things, so it'd be so confusing growing up because I didn't know my great grandmother was not my great grandmother, and when I was young I just didn't think about it that much. I'd be oh, grandma, but I'd be I know my grandma is the mother of my grandfather, but that didn't click of oh wait, but that's the generation, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it was 2 or 3 years I really started getting interested in it, and I just always reflected on how in school we did this family tree, and they're do your family tree, and everybody's oh, I'm from here, I'm from this, and from that, and I'm girl, I'm just Black. So I believe the thought. So I just wanted to find out what those stories are, and that's been a journey, and I'm still trying to figure out how that will come to fruition. But it's so interesting hearing you talk about that. I am interested to hear like what was that like, because it sounds like you've already interacted with that in your art. So like, what was that like, especially because you come from a different Black ethnic background than me. Like you talked about like how like you descend from Jamaica. So even like, how does the history of Jamaica and how like Jamaica and the regions there got like their independence from enslavement, how did that trickle down into your life, your stories, your lineage?
No, all of the work I do is for my people, my culture, my family, and then my father is African American. He's from Detroit, Michigan, and my mother is Jamaican. She's from Jamaica.
Yeah, and you were also born in Detroit.
And I was born in Detroit. And so I rep Detroit down. And so I am 5 generations of Detroit, so I can track that. And I think it's so important for African American ADOS, a descendant of slavery. I didn't know if everyone knew that.
Oh, yeah, so it's good to define that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I think it's so important for African Americans to understand the history of the place they are in, because being from Detroit, it is a majority African American city. It was, you know, we were the final stop on the Underground Railroad before achieving freedom in Canada. Like, we have had so many historical movements come out of Detroit, Motown, like all of the Black music, all of the music that influences the United States. A lot of it originated in Detroit. And so again, I may not be able to tell you 6, 7, 8, how many greats, but I know where my father was born, where my grandmother was born, where my great-grandmother was born, and where my great-great-grandmother immigrated to. And I draw a deep, deep sense of pride from being able to understand that the ground that I am walking on, my family has also walked on. So being from Detroit, I take that energy and I put it into my work. And similarly to Jamaica, the ground that my mother and my grandmother and my great-grandmother have walked on, I can tell you like facts about them. That just really influences my work. It helps me understand that what I do here and now is greater than the here and now. Like, I want to be a good ancestor, and I want my descendants to be like, yeah, great, whoever, I mean, so-and-so Camille, she did these things, and she left these messages and these words of inspiration, and I'm standing on so many shoulders, so I need to make my shoulders strong and broad so people can stand on them as well.
Right, I love that. And my second question, which is very interesting, because I feel as though you were speaking to a lot of community, and like how your familiar community has affected you.
Yes.
And then like we think about like ethnic community, we think about cultural community, but then you also talked about you brought up many times radical work, right? So I wanted to kind of ask you, what has it been like doing radical work? What has your radical work looked like for you? What does it look like living in radical community? Because that's another form of community, and it's a form of community that like you were out in the dirt, you know, like doing some like the first kind of, not the first steps, but like first new steps to another position, trying to push back, like, especially like, I mean, I would hope anybody watching this like understands radical work is against like oppression, but like when we like really like look and see what oppression is, and like it's not just interacting with like this person said this bad thing, but like legal systems interacting with. We had went, I and y'all don't see her, but like one of the producers, Karina, went to a Broadway advocacy festival that you performed at, and you even like did what 100% I would consider, and I know that us seeing that would consider radical work, like. And there was it was very interesting, especially being an educator. And I remember I had a question for one of the panels that we went to, just like there was so much work around the prison part of the school to prison pipeline, especially for racialized Black people and BIPOC people. And as an educator, I was really trying to pick up pieces of where can I bring in radical work as an educator to kind of stop the school part, because like literally like I work in East New York, and like my kids fight. They cannot communicate about a lot of their emotions. I've literally had kids be like, I just don't like to deal with emotions. Girl, you're 9. Like,
you got a lot of living left to do. Right. You got a lot of emotions to feel.
Yeah, to feel, and you clearly have a lot of emotions. Yeah. And then also, I was just telling them today how like, cause you know, like we have like a little like currency buck system. It's like, oh, you're good, I'm good to see you. So we're doing trivia and stuff like that. I recently found out that like they don't teach history and social studies in New York City anymore. It's not a genre. It's not a subject.
Wow.
And like some of my friends were like, oh, like I didn't learn that because like I went to school in Long Island. But I was like, girl, I definitely learned that.
Yeah.
Like I remember 4th, 5th, 3rd grade like learning about history. They could name 10 states. I'm so serious. I was like, name 10 states in the United States. They said Paris, Nigeria, Jamaica. I said, what?
no, you're wrong.
You're wrong. And it was so interesting because the juxtaposition of hearing that and that they're not learning about history, and then talking to a second grader, I'm playing the same game, and I'm like, name what was there before then, like the States of America, and she said, girl, colonies. There was 13 of them. And I was like, how'd you know this? You're in second grade.
Yeah.
She said, I watch YouTube. And she said it so plain. She was like, how dare you? I was like, oh, I'm sorry.
Not your teacher.
Let me not put some disrespect on your name,
yeah.
right? I'm not your teacher also.
Yeah.
But it was just so interesting to see how Generation Alpha, and you mentioned earlier that you're an educator too, so I want to hear your opinion on this. Generation Alpha is able to utilize technology to like radicalize themselves in a way of like the access to information is there, where a second grader can really learn and understand these things at an even faster pace than we were able to. But then they're also in this environment where like I don't think it's teachers' faults. Like especially like mainly fully, I don't think it's principals' faults. I think the system is just really not set up right for these kids. So what are your thoughts on that, and like how your radical work comes into that as an educator and as somebody that lives in a radical community as an artist?
I think radicalization, at least for me, or like how I am radical in my work, I first have to look at myself and my identity and understand how I have been complicit in systems of oppression. And because we grow up in a white supremacist, capitalist, homophobic, all the things environment, so there are tendrils of that inside of, I'll speak for me, inside of me that have just grown and been planted and been watered by living in America.
Right.
So I had to look at myself and say, how have I been harmful to myself? Ooh, I used to be anti-black, I'm black, I was a problem. And I was like, oh, but I kind of talked about it a little bit in my show at BAC, but
what's BAC?
Broadway Advocacy Coalition. Broadway
Yes.
Advocacy Coalition. Because I went to a predominantly white institution and I was one of the only black people there. And so I thought I was the perfect black girl. I'm very smart, I'm very well spoken, like I know how to operate in white society to gain success and clout and all of the things. But then I got to college and I just felt so much pressure. I was like, that black girl, she was 10 minutes late, you're making us all look bad, get it together. Like on the inside of me, that's how I felt. And I was like, she's fucking it up for the race. Or like, that black girl got a 3.9 instead of a 4.0 like me, you're bringing us down. Girl, I was going through it. And so I started having panic attacks in college because I did not know how to be this perfect, best black girl of like, how do I be who white people want me to be and like operate perfectly? And then I was like, oh, this is so, I don't know how I realized it was anti-black. I think I just had panic attacks and I was like, I cannot operate like this anymore.
Right.
So I think I was like, well, I gotta investigate why I'm having these panic attacks. And so I started understanding like, oh, it's because of the pressure I'm putting on these other black folks that I'm also putting on myself. And so I just started doing a lot of investigation and healing and trying to understand why I was feeling the things that I was feeling and how I was complicit in harming others and myself. And I was like, if I'm complicit this way, how else am I complicit?
Right.
And just unpacking that shame, because I was like, oh shit, I'm a bad person. But I don't think I'm a bad person. I'm just like, we are just all indoctrinated into these systems. So after looking at myself and understanding that I do not want to be a part of these systems of harm, how can I work to decolonize and unpack and, just get rid of all of that? That's where my radical work started. And the more you do, you're more like, oh no, I'm happier, I'm lighter, I'm more in community, we're meant to be together, we're not meant to be isolated and alone. The more it just makes me want to reach out to others and bring them in.
Right, yes, I love that. And so what would you recommend for, it doesn't have to be a specific person, but any artist out there that is maybe feeling like, I feel like we've all felt like at this at some point. They don't know how to get their work out there.
Yeah.
They don't know how to meet other creatives that like they can like be like, hey, like can I read this play to you? Or like can you read this play and we talk about this or we work on something. Like just find community with other creatives to God, I don't know if there's a word for it. The feeling that you feel of like just like you talked about our offering. Our offering. Yeah. And the fact of like you mentioned that earlier that you did that with like people that you knew, like like somebody produced that and like y'all all came together for community.
Yeah.
And even if you want to talk about like that experience, like what what is your experience and what would you recommend to people that like are trying to kind of curate their own spaces like that, where it's like, okay, I know this person, I know that person, just like even RDXL house, like, you know, we were talking about earlier, we all met at a theater festival, you know, like David was a playwright, I was a playwright, Karina was an actor, and then we all said, oh, we like your work, hey. And it was kind of like a courtship. You kind of have to court artists. So what is your experience been like courting artists, and how would you recommend the people out there that are like, I don't know how to court?
Yeah, no, just first of all, be genuinely interested in what other people are creating outside of what you think they can do for you. Because I linked up with Sis and Cece and a couple other people who I've been like collaborating with or like working alongside in a couple of different capacities. Just because we were in this one Facebook group, I don't think it's active anymore. It was the Black Undergraduate Theater Collective. It was just a bunch of black people who lived in New York, and people would just post in it. And one day Sis, and this is before she was Sis, like before she even had a name, she was just like, oh, I'm doing like a reading of Steel Magnolias. I need some people. Anybody want to do it? And I was like, why not? The play was cool enough. I was like, I need to go meet some people. I'm lonely. I live in New York. So I just went. I met Sis. I met Cece. We started talking. The reading did not happen. It never happened. But and that's okay because we've collaborated on so many other things since then. But then the pandemic happened, and so then we were all just kind of at home, and Sis had reached out to me. She wanted me to dramaturg. I had never dramaturged before, but I was like, I like research. I'm smart. I can do that. So then I dramaturged, and there were a couple other people that I knew on the project. I knew Gage Tarleton. We met at Williamstown Theater Festival in 2018. So yeah, just being around, being genuinely interested in what people do. If you like the work, be effusive with your flowers. Give them out. Give them to people. Tell them, I love that. How did you write that? How did you make that? What? I want to create things with you. And then like it'll just all come back.
And dang, I hate listening sometimes only because I'm like, I'll be listening and I forget the other thing that, you know, I was gonna ask. But there was something that you said that I was like, oh, I want to ask something about that. Shoot. It was something about just you were talking about how you and Sis had met, and you were talking about like just like being in like genuine. A Facebook group. Oh, being genuine, yes, but like being in a Facebook group and stuff like that. So like I was gonna ask you what social medias have worked best for you, because like I don't use Facebook like too much, but I do know there's a lot of film stuff on Facebook, like just groups I've joined. I haven't had too much luck yet, but that's because I don't feel like I've been adamant on it. But what's really worked for me is like going to a networking event, getting Instagrams, and then like making a little Instagram, be like, hey, you know, like what like social media have worked for you. If it's like Twitter, I know people have like met creators on Twitter, they say. So like where do you feel like people should maybe look?
Facebook worked a lot earlier in my career, like 2019 when I first moved to New York, because I met a producer who produced the virtual edition of my one-woman show on Facebook. It was like another like BIPOC creative page, and I was like, hey, I'm doing a virtual reading of my one-woman show. Does anyone have any advice? This is literally my first time doing this. And Garlia Jones, who worked at the Public, was like, hey, I have a theater company and I would love to produce your thing. And it was just God. It was really just God, because she took a risk on me. And I was like, wow, God bless you, Garlia. God bless you, Garlia. And so then we started working together, and I've worked with her on a couple of different things now. Or Instagram. I'm a big fan of the professional DM slide. Yeah, one of my mentors.
Slide in the DMs.
I like your work. I want to work with you. So one of my mentors, I met her in college. She is a Black Caribbean woman. She's now a Broadway producer. She has a book series and a nonprofit. So back then, I have a children's book series that I kind of wrote, but it's
published?
I self-published, but we did sell like 100-something copies.
First off, self-publishing is sexy.
You're right, we are. We self-published.
Speak on it. Also, send us the link, and it's going to be in the description.
It's not for sale anymore. There's a lot of... What I love about what I do, I will put the work out there, but now I have grown, and I'm like, oh, this is not where I am as a writer anymore. It was back when I thought the police could be reformed. So the whole story was like an allegory. It was like this little girl, she was a 4th grader, there was a hall monitor, he was a bully, which was like the cops. And so I was like, she's gonna join the hall monitors and reform the hall monitors from the inside out. Because I believe the cops could be changed when I was a younger child. And I don't anymore. I believe in abolition.
But also I love that.
Yeah.
I love that acknowledgement of that growth. Like, because our artistry all has that. Just like, that's why I even like, we had, this is honest, transparent conversation. We had a conversation about, basically, especially for the nonprofit, like, that's where we're trying to like make resources for marginalized people. And like, BIPOC people, queer people, etc. So like, when I told David and Karina, like, you know, like, this for marginalized people, they were like, that just marginalized? Like, you know, like, you don't want to get a little bit more specific. And I was like, wait, you're right. Because they were like, well, a lot of times you see marginalized spaces that say they're for marginalized people, and then it's like white queer people, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And then it's a lot of white queer cis people, and then it's like, what's going on here?
Right.
And it's hard because when I was communicating with my fear, it's just like, I don't ever want to put myself in a position. I recognize that this is a position of power that I'm in, and I don't want to, all the blind spots I have with the communities that aren't BIPOC and aren't queer, I don't want them to not get the resources that they need. But like, it's hard because you do need specific language to be like,
applying for grants too.
Yeah. So you had this experience of like what we're talking to. So what would you recommend of even like language and verbiage? Like,
ask me the question again.
The idea of like, when you're specifying about like making resources in spaces for marginalized people, and you want us to be open to the different like blind spots of marginalized people, but you also don't want essentially, how's the best way to say this?
Yeah, like being specific and general.
It's because it's like, you don't want that. If you're so general, then the only marginalized people that are shown is like the marginalized people that are like white and queer at the top, and then it's like, you're not getting down to like the black woman, the black trans woman, then like indigenous trans people, then indigenous women, like, you know, indigenous people. Like, you're not getting down to all those like nitty gritty of all those other communities.
I don't know if I have an answer for that.
That's fair, because we're still working. We're still like, because we right now we are always like, we encourage you to apply if you're BIPOC and queer. It's for marginalized spaces, but we encourage you, like, we're really pushing for y'all, especially like, girl, look at me. Turn the cameras, you know, look at them. But like,
I guess
it's still we're trying to figure it out.
Yes, give yourself grace, of course, that always. Give yourself grace and room to grow.
Right.
And also just making sure your spaces are accessible to folks who are marginalized in ways that are different from you. I have a friend who's a wheelchair user, and he was telling me about this experience where he was like, oh, it was a show, they were looking for a wheelchair user, they ain't got no wheelchair ramp in the building, how am I supposed to get in? So when you are hosting events, maybe making the language plain, like, there are elevators in this building, so if you need it, you can use it. This is a masked building, so if you are immunocompromised, we are providing masks. So just being clear and specific about the language and how we are welcoming people into the space. So it's not even a question of like, will I be able to get through these doors? Or like, will I be able to fit in the seats if I'm a larger person, you know? Just talking to people of those identities so that you can see what they need and not assume what they need.
Yeah, even like, I think having a consultant is such a beautiful thing. Like, you can have so many different consultants just to check out somebody.
Exactly. One of my friends, Amara Brady, she did some dramatist work for my play At God's Back, and she's fat, not in a derogatory way, but in that she describes herself as like a fat black woman. And she was like, oh, this line is fat phobic right here. And I was like, oh, yeah, I see that. That was not my intent, but you're right, I'll change it. And so then I changed it. But that was not something that I would have seen, and I appreciated the way that she gently corrected me and not, cancel Camille, she did this thing. And I took the advice, and I learned, and I'm still learning, so yeah.
And so, because I think there's a lot of discussion around cancel culture, especially the nuances right now, and I don't want to get into all of it just because this is not about Amy Schumer, but like, for example, Amy Schumer, and like, things like that. Where do you think the line is where, because I do think that there is a space where it's like, there are things that are done that like, you need to protect people, and like when it gets violent, like right, like when it gets hateful. So like, where do you think that line is? What do you recommend to artists when you find yourself in a space where where somebody's gently correcting you, or you're needing to be gently corrected about something, and even like, yeah, just like, what are your thoughts around that? Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to formulate that, but just like, how can people that have never dealt with that and also maybe don't have the best communication, because I think people with better communication, it's easier to deal with.
Yeah.
But like, if you don't have good communication skills, you might think that somebody's coming to attack you, and you don't see that like, no, this is like a valid thing that they're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I was reading the Bible, and one of the verses was talking about how you handle conflict. And so the first one was like, come to them one-on-one, like an individual. And then if that doesn't solve the conflict, bring in like a third mediator who's like a trusted individual, like a mentor person. And then if that doesn't solve the conflict, then bring it to community so you guys have more voices and more input. So I mean, that's what I try to do, where it's just like, all right, let me talk to you friend to friend. And then if that doesn't work, let me bring in Karina, who maybe has like an outsider view. And then if that doesn't work, let me bring in the RDXL council.
Right.
And then I hope y'all change by that. I don't know what to do after that.
That's my whole thing. It's like, is there a certain point? When is that certain point, do you think? Because there could be not.
Yeah. I mean, there definitely is. Like you said, when harm, like violence is happening, it might be a temporary removal from the community of like, hey, for 1 month, you just need to be thinking and growing and learning. But I mean, this is like community of friends, like but like the larger community might be a different issue.
Right.
But yeah, we're all still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we're definitely trying to figure it out. And I think it's actually interesting because we had discussions about like a partner and like
a romantic partner? Or
no, like a business partner
Okay.
we were partnered with that had like, I'm trying to be real PR, especially I know my PR producers.
I'm head of PR.
Hello.
So like I know I'm looking over to her just to get you, but like,
I mean, can we always cut the tape and like
Okay.
whatever makes
Right.
I'm like gonna be here.
Right.
Okay.
And also like, we could definitely talk about it more. Like get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
But just trying to be like more kind of the camera. We did not see eye to eye on what hate meant and what violence meant. And so we had to judge that relationship, and it's frustrating because it's frustrating and it's interesting because even the idea of not having to dead a relationship because you don't understand that, like, you don't have the same like a definition of what hate and violence is when you're both queer.
Yeah.
Like, you're both queer, and like David was there, like when we first met. It was like, so I'm black. Can I bring black people in here? Like, can I bring trans people in here? Like, what's your feelings around it? And like, I think our landscape today, for many reasons, people want to position themselves that like, oh yes, like I'm open, as do the work, but it doesn't come down to even like just as a production company. It doesn't even come down to just values. It comes down to like, these artists are coming into our space. They're trusting us. If you have a violent, like hateful view of them, and now they have this traumatic like experience, like that's not just on y'all, it's on us.
Right.
You know? And I think it's hard, and so I kind of ask, like, especially in, just saying it straight up, like there's like people that we know that like are like getting dropped from agencies for like supporting like Palestine, and like I genuinely do feel like it comes down to a situation of like, do you think it's acceptable? We had all these conversations of all lives matter, you know, like that's so crazy. I can't think of like what people that feel like we shouldn't have access to abortion say. What is the saying? Like pro-life.
Okay.
Like, you know, we had like all these discussions of pro-life, and like now we are literally having people and I'm not even just talking about the everyday Joe. I'm talking about like the fact that a House bill was passed, you know, about these things, and about like determining what is okay for us to discuss and like bring acknowledgement of like, this is not okay, when like people are just dying over something they have no connection of. And that's something you gotta end a partnership over if like you're supporting that, if you're supporting white supremacy. So how do you kind of like deal with it? Because I feel like it's different when it's business. Like when it's like community, it's like, okay, but now it's like, oh, there's money involved and like reputation.
It does hurt whenever any type of relationship ends for me, like a business opportunity or a friendship or a romantic relationship. So I have to acknowledge to myself, I am hurt, I am grieving the loss of this relationship, I am grieving the potential that I thought this relationship held, because you imagine building a whole like industry or building like something amazing together, and then you have to have a funeral for all of those expectations. So you do that, you take your time, you understand that there are seasons in life and there are seasons in relationships, and this season has come to a close. It does not always mean it's a permanent close forever, fuck them, because maybe the person does change in 5, 10 years. I didn't say tomorrow, but you know, 10, 20, whatever amount of years, they may be back in your life or they may not be. So you just have to just rest in that. Like, I acted with integrity and I followed my beliefs and what I know to be true and what I know to be right and correct. And you just keep it moving. It hurts, and then you just, eventually it hurts less.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I think it's important for artists to hear conversations even like this. I think as young artists, they're going to have to continue to deal with these things, and we've been dealing with them as Black, as marginalized, as queer people for decades. Like, it's so interesting reading about like 1920s and reading about like Zora Neale Hurston and like her arguments and the things she had to deal with about getting herself produced, and like how they literally had to have white people benefactors. I was like, crazy. This is crazy. And so it's just interesting because I don't feel like we get to, or at least I have not seen as much the facilitated conversations of like, what do you do in that situation, and like when those things happen. And I think one of the closing things I'm kind of wondering is, when it comes to your pieces and when it comes to, especially because like you very clearly like have thought about a lot of these things a lot, and you have a lot of insight on them from your experiences, but also just like you're very well spoken on it. So how do you feel all of this radical work, this community engagement, how does it bleed into your work, and how do you feel like, what is your place in the fight is the best way to kind of say it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. My place in the fight, I'm not a frontline worker. I know that much. I was outside for Palestine yesterday, and it just 20 people showed up for this small like speak out, and I handed out the flyers. I'm great at handing out flyers. I was like, take this, come to the protest, welcome to the movement. I'm good at that, but my strongest points are educator, healer, storyteller. I think those are my strongest points. I am really good at being a space for my friends who are more on the front lines to come and recharge, and I can hold their grief really well and all of their emotions. I'm good at helping people understand their feelings, which is a lot of labor and a lot of work, because for the people to go out to the front and be in front of the people, they need to know they have a safe spot where they can come and get some tea and get a hug. I love hugging people. And then how does this bleed into my work? I try to, again, as an educator, I try to connect my students with as many opportunities as possible. I was able to take a few of my kids from the Bronx to go see Jaja's African hair braiding.
What? That is so awesome.
So that was really fun.
That is so awesome.
Yes, and I understand it did. I wanted more, but I was like, you know what?
Oh, I didn't get to see it.
Yeah,
so
not from the play, but from my kids. But they're deep in the Bronx. It was a workshop with Manhattan Theater Club. I teach for them as well. So the workshop was at 10:30, so the kids had to be at school at 8:30 a.m. and getting kids to a school on Saturday at 8:30 a.m. 10 people said they were interested. 6 returned the permission slip. The day of, 2 or like 3 or 4 canceled. So we had 2 kids, and I was like, I'm gonna take these 2. We gonna see this dang play, and we gonna have fun. And they did. They loved it. And now they have a passion for theater. And then I work in Brownsville in Brooklyn, and my company, it wasn't just me this time, but the company was able to take a group, several classes of 3rd graders to go see The Lion King. And we are trying, in Jesus' name, to see The Wiz. That's what I want in spring.
You know what? I'm hoping on that with you.
Okay, I want these kids, they're in the 4th grade now. I want them to go see The Wiz so bad.
Please.
So I try to bring in like political poems. I teach poetry, so I'm like, all right, we're gonna go learn about this today. And luckily my companies that I work for are all super supportive. They're like, there's Camille teaching the kids to say fuck the United States again. Yay!
Crazy.
So I try to bring it into my work with my students. I try to have my work have a life outside of just a theater company or the theater seats, you know, like the work I really enjoyed with Broadway Advocacy Coalition. It was in service of the Solutions Not Suspensions bill. So there was an ask at the end of it of like, hey, outside of these four walls of this theater, there is a life for this project, for this bill. Vote, talk to your council members, talk to whoever you need to talk to try to get this thing passed.
Right.
So
it hasn't
yeah,
had any luck.
it hasn't had any luck yet. But I mean, they've been fighting for 8 years. Zakia Ansari has been on the front lines of educational reform and educational justice for a long time. I also acknowledge that I am, again, just a drop in the river of liberation. Like, I am one person. There are so many tentacles of this creature that have to work in tandem in so many different ways because supremacy, white supremacy, and, like, capitalism, it has so many tentacles that are just so malicious. So we all have to be fighting in our assigned spots to be able to dismantle it, you know?
Right, 100%. And I think the last thing I want to know is, with all the amazing things that you do, like, what is it that you find of rest? Like, I find that we all have different opinions of what rest is. Of course, it's But then also, it's like, I love to watch video. That's one thing that we connected first on. Karina and I like video essays. Like, I love Red too. Like, I love just sitting there and, like, I fall into a video essay hole. Or, like, I watch, like, I started watching an old TV show that, like, I saw when I was younger, but, you know, you didn't really, like, see it because you were young. So what do you do kind of for rest? To, like, kind of, after all that labor of, like, work and artistry and education and being there for friends, like, now Camille needs to kind of hibernate, especially this girl. It turned dark at 4:30 in New York City.
Lord!
Girl, you making me feel like, oof, I'm sitting at my desk at work like, is it time to go to sleep?
Bedtime. Yes, I like to watch anime. I love anime.
What are you watching right now?
Well, I'm watching Blue Eye Samurai on Netflix, Jujutsu Kaisen, Spy Family. Yeah, I love anime. I started watching, me and my dad watch it together. That's like our thing. What else? I like to read. I love a little, you know, YA fiction book where it's like a love triangle moment happening and she's the chosen one. It's so predictable. They're not even the greatest books, but I'm like, I love a love triangle. Give it to me.
What do you love about Love Triangle?
I don't know, the drama. I just like it. I'm like, who is she gonna pick?
Wow.
Is it gonna be like this man or this man, the dark, broody individual, or her longtime best friend?
You watched all seasons of The Vampire Diaries.
I have not. I need to. I just read so many. I watch so many things. I'm gonna get into it. I'm a terrible binge watcher. There's like, how many seasons? It's like 8. It's a lot of seasons, isn't it?
It is, but it's okay because you're welcomed with another terrible binge watcher.
Are you a terrible binge
No, I'm great.
Is it, oh, is it you?
You can't watch anything.
It's because my little baby attention span. I'm like, oh.
It's you and these TikToks.
Yes,
these TikToks,
me. 1 minute. That's what I need.
Please. The way so many people have been talking to me about that, because even C was saying, like, or actually, we'll cut out this part just because I don't, like, I don't know if they want this, like, out there. Like, I don't think they would care, but, like,
no problem.
But, like, people would only watch, like, 7 to 14 seconds on average of
the
TV episodes. And, like, I was watching the whole thing, so I'm thinking, like, oh, everybody's sitting through and watching the whole thing, but I get, and, like, it wasn't even fully just because I know Steve, it's just, like, it's fun, like, it's a sketch, like, oh, why would I be trying to watch this? 7 to 14 seconds on average is crazy. And it was a go with, like, that song slaps.
Yes.
Like, go read a book. Go read a book. Actually, we may need to talk to them about putting this in the end, okay? Go read a book. But yeah, it's just so crazy because I really do feel like our attention spans are so small now.
Like that.
So, and you're not a binge watcher. So, but you can't watch binge some anime.
Yes, and I can read a book. Like, I can sit down and read a book for like 3 hours. It's probably because the movie is in my head. Yeah, that's it. That. Yeah, that's the only explanation I have.
I see that. What books have you been reading? Like, I've been reading a manga by Octavia E. Butler.
Yes, I'm reading this one YA series. It's about dragons and things. I love a good fantasy. It's called The Iron Wing. Is that what it's called? Basically, she's a dragon rider, and she's, like, weak, and everybody... Do you know that book?
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
I'm, like, super hesitant to, like, say anything, because, like, but, like, I have so much.
I have
say
the
it
first
after.
book. I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just bought the second book. I'm like, this is fun. Like, it's
Right.
light. I get to think about dragons.
Right.
I take a walk. I try to go to the gym. It's more
Okay.
for
Oh,
aesthetic
you're a gym girly.
purposes.
You're a gym
I
girly.
like to be fit and fine. I'm
Right.
really in my woman body. The
Period.
hips, the butt. It's here.
Okay.
It's come. So I need to keep it up, okay?
Right.
What else do I do? I like to journal. I love to think about and talk about my feelings. I like to cry. It's a lot of fun for me.
A scheduled good cry is always
Oh,
nice.
no, I cry all the time. It won't even be
Yeah.
scheduled. I'll be like, oh, a very Pisces of me. I'm crying
Oh,
again.
you're Pisces.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
Pisces.
When's your birthday?
March 9th.
March 8th.
Not your day before me. That's
Yes, my dad's a
crazy.
Pisces too. He's a very emotional man.
We love that. We
Yeah.
love emotional men.
I do.
We
He's a
need more.
cutie.
Yeah. Period.
Yeah.
Period.
But that's what I like to do.
Right. Well, we love to hear what you like to do, and hopefully we'll be seeing some more of you soon. What do we think? What do you
Hopefully,
think?
yes.
If it's not here, somewhere in the interest
Yeah,
space.
somewhere.
Okay, somewhere, because their social media is going to be right down below, so you can catch them there. Right?
Yes, you can. Should I say it? Do I say it now? My social
I mean,
media?
you don't have to say it, only because also just because we've been trying to figure out some sort of distribution on that. But I will say, if there's any events or anything that you have coming up, definitely say that.
Yeah, I have some stuff happening in April. There's no ticket sales or anything available yet, but I'll give you some save the dates. I can do that.
Period.
My play
We
Sweet.
didn't do this with other people. Because you're the first person I just thought of. I was like, events.
Yeah.
I'll text everyone.
Yeah.
I got you.
Everybody after this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My play Sweet Blood has a work in progress showing. Just the music. There's some 3 songs. I'm a composer person
Right.
now. I've been
Okay.
composing things.
Okay, look at you.
Yeah,
again.
yes,
Okay.
getting my David on. April 16th and April 18th, part of the Interrobang Festival at the Brick. And then me and a friend are co-producing independently. We both have plays. I have a family member with bipolar disorder. She has another member with bipolar disorder. So the plays are kind of like about our experiences and like what those different familial relationships look like. And that is April 27th and April 28th.
Okay.
So save those dates. Come see
Save
some
them.
things.
Yes, and please send those links to Miss Carita.
I will. When the links are up, there's not anything like
Right.
linky yet.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. And that actually, well, this part will just be cut out real quick, but that actually is kind of perfect because I think this might come out February or March.
Oh,
so-
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. There'll be links by then.
Right.
Yes.
But we're just gonna do the conclusion real quick. But thank you for coming on
Thank
today.
you.
And if you have any questions for Camille, look down in the description, like I said, and you can find her there.